I want to tell you about the year I learned to say a thing one time and then let it stand. I am 87 years old. On a gray morning this past winter, I sat down at my kitchen table with a coffee can full of buttons my wife used to sort on Sundays, and I counted the promises I had said twice. There were 9. 9 good things I handed to people I love, and then went back and handed to them again. And in the handing again, I turned every one of them from a gift into a bill. I did not feel ashamed when the counting was done. I did not feel proud. I felt honest, maybe for the first time in years. Come closer. Pull your chair up to where the heat is, because this one is small, and small things are easy to walk past. I am not telling you that you talk too much. I am not telling you your memory is going soft, or that you have turned into the old man who repeats himself at the supper table. That is not what I found in that coffee can. What I found was quieter, and it was worse. Every time I said a promise a second time, I was not making it stronger. Do you know what I was doing? I was asking to be paid. My grandmother said a thing to me when I was a boy that I did not understand until my hair had gone white. She said a gift is a blanket, and a blanket only keeps a person warm if your hands come off it. She said when you give a good word once, it belongs to whoever caught it. When you give it twice, it comes back across the room and belongs to you again. And now that person is standing there holding the cold end of it, wondering what they owe. I thought she was talking about food or about the things people carry into a house after a funeral. She was talking about the mouth. Nobody loses a family in one bad afternoon. They lose them one repeated sentence at a time, and after 75, the sentences come easier. The first confession is the blue truck. I told my son when he was 42 and I was 76 that the truck standing in my shed would be his when I was finished driving. He put his hand flat on the fender and did not say much, but he stood out there a long while, and I know what standing there means. That should have been the end of it. It was already his. But the next time he came, I said it again. And the time after that. By the 3rd spring, I had a habit of walking him out to the shed and saying it the way a man reads a will out loud. He started answering, "I know, Dad." Then he stopped walking out to the shed at all. My grandfather used to say a man will carry a heavy thing a long way if nobody keeps reminding him it is heavy. I had made my son carry that truck, so I quit. I said nothing about it for 4 years, and one evening in June he asked me to show him how the choke works. Before I go on, let me set one small thing down beside you. I wrote a little book called The Native Way. It is the long version of what I am telling you here. The sayings and the winters and the damage I did with nothing but my own mouth. The link is in the description underneath this video, and there is no pressure at all in it. I will be sitting right here whether you ever open it or not. That is all I will say about it. Now, there is one confession further down this list that I am the least proud of, and I am saving it for the end, because it took me the longest to see, and it cost me more than the other 8 put together. But we will get there. Let me give you the second confession. The second confession is Christmas. My daughter asked me the year I turned 78 whether I would come to her house for Christmas instead of her driving 4 hours out to mine. I said yes, one yes, and the thing was finished, and she was happy for about 4 days. Then I telephoned to say it again. Then I put it in a letter. Then I said it on the phone in October, and in November, and once more the week before, and by then my yes had a bill stapled to it. She began apologizing for the drive she was no longer making. She began asking if I was sure, if I was truly sure, if it was too much for an old man. A yes said one time is a gift. A yes said 6 times is a favor, and every favor has to be paid back somehow. My grandmother said the second telling always comes with a handout. I did not believe her until I heard my own daughter thanking me for something I had not done yet. The third confession is a fence. My neighbor lost his fence line in a March wind, and I told him I would come over Saturday with my post digger and a sack of nails. I meant every word of it. But on Thursday I saw him at the mailboxes, and I told him again, and on Friday I called the house and told him a third time, and by Saturday morning he had already dug the holes himself. He said he did not want to trouble me. He was not being proud. He was being careful. Each time I repeated it, I made the favor bigger in his mind, until it grew too big for a neighbor to accept. My grandfather said that if you keep polishing a gift, people start to believe it was expensive. That is what the second telling does. It hangs a price on a thing that was supposed to be free. I lost a whole Saturday of good work beside a good man, and I lost it with my own mouth, one sentence at a time. The fourth confession is the money for school. I told my granddaughter I would cover her books and her fees, and I told her not to think about it again. That was right. That was clean. Then at Easter, I asked her how the classes were going, and I asked it in a certain voice, a voice with an invoice down inside it. Then I asked again at her birthday. She started mailing me her grades. Nobody asked her to. She had decided somewhere in her chest that she owed me a report, and a girl who owes you a report is not receiving a gift. She is paying on a debt. My grandmother said that a gift with a question attached has quit being a gift. I never once asked for that money back. I did something smaller and heavier. I asked over and over to be told that it had mattered. The fifth confession is forgiveness. There was a thing my wife did in the spring of 1969, and it does not matter now what it was, and I forgave her for it, and I told her so, and I meant it all the way down. That should have stayed buried. But 17 years later, in the middle of an argument about a car payment, I told her that I had forgiven her for it. I said it kindly. That is the terrible part. I said it kindly, and I watched something go out of her face that took a long while to come back. She was standing at the sink with a dish towel over one shoulder, and she set that towel down on the counter and went and sat in the front room by herself with the lamp off. 41 years we were married, and I can count on one hand the number of times she did that. 3 of the 5 were mine. Forgiveness said the second time is not forgiveness. It is an accusation wearing a soft coat. My grandfather said you cannot bury a thing twice, and that the second time all you are doing is digging. I had dug her up in her own kitchen to show what a generous man I was. Now here are 2 that belong together, because they are the same sickness in 2 different shirts. The 6th confession is my grandson and the carving knife. I promised to teach that boy how to take the bark off a cottonwood branch, and then, instead of teaching him, I announced it. I announced it at Thanksgiving. I announced it to his mother over the telephone. I announced it to him twice more before the summer came, until that child had to act glad about the same gift 4 separate times. And the 7th confession is my friend at the care home over in the valley. I told him I would come every Sunday. Then I told him again the next week and the week after, and somewhere in there the telling began standing in the place of the going. A promise said out loud will feed a man's conscience just enough to keep him home. My grandmother said the mouth eats first, and if you let it, it will eat the whole meal and leave the hands nothing to do. He died on a Tuesday. I had said Sunday 11 times and gone 6. The 8th confession is the open door. I told my nephew after his marriage came apart that there would always be a place for him under my roof. He nodded and went quiet, the way a man goes quiet when something has landed. And then I could not leave it alone. I told him again at the funeral for his father. I told him on the porch in August. I told him in a Christmas card in my own handwriting. And that boy stopped coming around. It took me years to understand why. His sister told me at last, at a wedding up in Bismarck. She said he had told her once that every time he pulled into my drive, he could hear me getting ready to say it again, and he would sit out there with the engine running and count to 20 before he came inside. Then one winter, he just did not come inside. A door mentioned 1 time is a door. A door mentioned 4 times is a bed with rent on it. He could not afford what I kept describing, so he stayed away from a house that would have cost him nothing at all. And here is the ninth confession, the one I said I would save. My wife was sick for 11 months, and near the end of it I told her I would be all right. That was the promise. It was the only one she wanted. And then I said it again the next day, and the day after that. I said it to her 40 times if I said it once, sitting in that chair with her hand inside mine, and I believed the whole while that I was comforting her. I was not. A dying woman does not need the same sentence 40 times. I was the one who needed it. Every time I said it, I was waiting for her to look up at me and tell me it was true, to spend some of the little strength she had left reassuring the healthy man in the chair. That is the whole of it. And it took me until my 87th winter to see it plain. The second telling is never for the one who is listening. It is for the one who is speaking. My grandfather said a man who keeps knocking is not asking to come in. He is asking to be wanted. I kept knocking on my own wife's last weeks. She always answered. She always said, "I know you will." Once, near the very end, she squeezed my fingers and said it before I could even get the words out, the way you hand a man his hat so that he will finally go. I took that for tenderness for years afterward. It was not tenderness. It was a tired woman doing one more chore I kept setting down in front of her, and that cost her something I can never pay back, and I would not know where to send it. Now let me say something careful, because I know how a list like this can land in an old chest at 11 o'clock at night. Naming these 9 was not the same as hating myself for them. I want you to hear the difference, because the difference is nearly everything. A man who repeats his promises is not a greedy man. He is a frightened one. He is standing in the last part of his life, and he has worked out that he has more love left than he has years, and he cannot think of any way to hand it over faster than by saying it twice. That is not rot in a person's character. That is arithmetic, done badly by a man who is running short on time. I have watched good people do it in hospital waiting rooms and in church parking lots, and not one of them was trying to collect on anybody. What sat in that coffee can was not 9 proofs that I am a taker. It was 9 places where my mouth got scared and reached back for what my hands had already given away. A habit is a thing a man can set on the table and look at in daylight. A name is a thing he has to carry around inside his coat. I refuse to make a name out of 9 habits. Do you hear me? If you have done this, and if you are past 75, I would guess that you have, because we all get frightened around the same year, then you have not become a burden. You have a mouth that loves people and got in a hurry. Those two are not the same, and you are allowed to know the difference tonight. So let me gather this up for you now. The way my grandmother gathered the ends of her shawl, the truck I willed to my son every spring until he stopped walking to the shed, the Christmas yes I said 6 times until my daughter apologized for it, the fence I promised until my neighbor could not afford to accept it, the school money I never asked back but kept asking about, the forgiveness I dug up 17 years after I buried it, the carving I announced instead of teaching, the Sundays I said 11 times and kept 6, the door I described so often it turned into rent, and the promise I made to a dying woman 40 times so that she would keep telling me it was true. 9. Now turn it toward your own kitchen. When you told your daughter she could have the house, how many times have you told her since? When you said you had let an old thing go, did you go back and let it go again where somebody could hear you doing it? When somebody thanked you last, did you find a way to bring the gift back up again before the week was out? And the last time you repeated a good promise, who was standing in the warm end of it, and who was left holding the cold? Somebody out there is sitting very still right now, and I know the question in your throat because I have had it in mine. Is it too late for me? Am I too old and too far along to change what my mouth does? I am 87, and I will not promise you what will come of it. I have no business promising anybody a result at my age. But here is what has not been taken from me, and it has not been taken from you either. I can still notice. And having noticed, I can still make one ordinary choice, one time, with one sentence. Say the good thing once, then let it stand. I would like to hear from you now. Of those 9, which number sat down closest to your own chair? Tell me the one, down in the comments, and tell me a little of the story if you have the heart for it, because I read every comment that comes in, every single one, usually in the early morning with the coffee, and then come back and sit with me again tomorrow. I will keep the chair warm, and I will try to say the important things one time.